Morning. My name is Corey Ullman. I'm with Mac Metal Architectural, and today we're here at Red River Lumber doing a Mac Metal presentation. Ken Chandler is our tech rep, and he's going to be going over the ins and outs of applying our Mac Metal and the different trims that go with it.
Because it was when Brad.
If you have a vinyl siding experience, the components are going to be very similar, but it just happens to be steel. This is 26 gauge steel. It's primed and it's got a coating on there that will last a long time. So it's very low maintenance, hardly any maintenance. You should never have to repaint it. Just a light cleaning to clean it up. So that's the advantages of it. Now it comes in the box. These are cut pieces. So normally they would be 12 foot long. They are a little bit flimsy, not too bad, so you don't really want to be handling them like that. Like a short piece you can handle like that, but on a 12 footer, this is likely to bend in the middle. So you always want to handle it like this, like an I-beam. So tell your truckers, your guys that are taking it out to the job site, you want to carry it this way, or have two people carry it this way. So that's the first thing. It also has a film on it, a plastic film that protects it as you're putting it up. I would not take this off immediately. What I like to do is put up 2 or 3 pieces and then tear it off as I go. You also don't want to leave it up all day long because this could melt onto the surface and it's really hard to get off. But it is a good protection. It keeps it from scratching. Then the next thing you want to know about is you'll notice that when you look at this at the wall, it looks like real wood from a distance. And the way we achieve that is we vary or randomize the grain patterns and the tones of the colors. So inside each box is 6 different unique planks. There's going to be 2 of each of those unique. So there's 12 planks total. You don't have to memorize all this. This is all in a catalog. But there's 12 planks in a box and 2 of each color types. And the way you know, so you go, well, how do you know that? Well, on the back we have a number. So there's a number 1 right here on this one. So this is the number 1 plank, and then there'll be 2 number 1s, 2 number 2s, 2 number 3s, 4, 5, and 6. They're stuffed in there. Usually you'll have, like, you open it up and you might find 2 6s and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It'll be like that. So is that different? A little bit?
Slightly.
And some of them are real close to each other. And to break it down even further, there's only really 3 tones, a light, medium, and dark shade or tone of color. So the point being is we want this put up randomly. That gives it the more wood look. If you see a job, and that's for the people who are out in the field, if you go out and you see the guy going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's going to look real. It's not going to be random at all. It's going to be have a pattern to it, and it's not going to look real. But if you go a 1, a 3, a 6, a 5, a 4, and then mix up the pattern after that, it makes it look so much better and natural.
Right.
And that's that's our niche. That's the niche of this product. I mean, it's a steel product. Lots of steel products out there on the market, but that's what we've done. We've created this system that makes it all look like real. 2 of each one, so you don't have to go grab a box of 1, a box. No, it's all spread out. So yep. That's it. So you bring up a point. So I have this little table here, but you definitely would like to set up a table of some type. I notice you have that big table in the back. You don't have to film that, but just some kind of a big, long table. Best to have 2 pieces of plywood together on a sawhorse, and then put all your tools, and like we'll go over this. This is the guillotine. Have it in the middle, and then you can work out of 1 box at a time. And that way you're not going over here, like I said, opening all these boxes and having it damaged. You just I like to put my guillotine on one side and my box on the other, and just work out of the box as I go. And a 2 or a 3-person crew is ideal. 4 is even better. But if you have 3, so if you have 1 guy on the ground cutting, and he's kind of the one that's really good with the numbers and good with recognizing the patterns and keeping up with things. So probably the boss or the supervisor, and then 2 on the ladder or the lift putting up the material, and they can go really fast with the material. If you had a fourth person that went around cleaning up and, you know, keeping everything fed and supplied and giving tools to them and giving them new screws and just a helper, that would be great too. But 3-man, 4-man crew, you can put up siding all day long. But I do recommend a table of some type. Okay, so now let's go over the tools. Let's first talk about what kind of person who would you want to get to install this? Now, your guys are in the lumber business, so you have all kinds of trades coming in. You have framers, you have trim people, you have everything, painters, you've got them all. Any of those, the handyman, they could all do it. But the guy that's going to be the best at it is going to be somebody that's done metal before, that knows their way around snips and shears, and they already have the tools to do this. So that's going to be, sometimes your gutter people, but I wouldn't put them in the number 1 category, but gutter would be good. A roof metal guy would be good. The only problem with the roof metal is they're not used to, they'll have to have a learning curve about making sure the metal is exactly smooth, because on a roof you obviously don't see it. So even if you have a little bend or a little bit of imperfection on a roof, chances are nobody's going to see it, but they're going to see it on the wall. So if I were to Google search or search in my market, I would type in metal siding installer, and you're probably going to come up with a couple of roofing companies. So a lot of times the roofing company will have a metal sider. They'll have a crew that just does their siding. Now they're going to be used to bigger panels, wider panels, R panels, and those kind of things. This is going to be a little bit foreign to them. So that's where me and Corey come in. And Corey's local. I'm practically local. I'm in Texas, but I cover the United States. He covers pretty much the southern part of the United States. But between the two of us, we can get to you, or we can get a video call in, or get something where we just walk the new installer over the basics. So we're not just going to say send it out the door and have a nice day. We want to help you get over that curve. And once they've done 2 or 3 jobs, they're going to be your best friend. I mean, it's going to be easy. So all right, so that's your installer. So when you go and find these people, that's one thing to know. To find them is you see if they've got the kind of tools. So the main tools for the trade are the snips, and there's reds and there's greens. Did y'all know the difference between reds and greens? So when you cut it, it depends on when you cut it. So when I cut right here, watch what happened when I cut. This piece bent up a little bit, and this piece stayed straight. So this is the side, this is my good side, this is the side that I'm going to throw away. So you want it, so a metal person knows that, and they're going to be going left, and they're going to be using both of them. If you have a green, when you cut with the green, it does the opposite. See, in this case, it lifted up here and kept this one straight. So it's not just for opening bands of lumber, it's also it's a tool for cutting metal. And some will have a yellow, but most of them will have use the reds and greens. And then the other thing that they might have is a seamer, a hand seamer. And it doesn't have to look like this, or bigger ones or shorter ones, but that's just for bending metal. So now if I want to take that piece and bend it up, maybe I've got some kind of something where it gets to the end of the wall, and then I need something to come through there. I could bend that out, and I could even bend it this way if I wanted to. I could take it and do another bend and do that. So you can manipulate the metal. You can also fix something if you have a place that got messed up. Let's say that got messed up, and I'm like, oh, I think I can save that. Or you can maybe take that back, and
what is that?
that's called a hand seamer. That would be the 3 main ones. Other than that is other basic tools like tape measures, squares, a level. You obviously want a bigger level than that. I just have this to represent a level. This is just to represent like a chalk line, or to let you know that when you put it on the wall, it's not like other sidings. It needs to be a really plumb and level wall, because if that wall is off by any more than maybe, what would you say, quarter of an inch, the metal is not going to, it doesn't want to give, it's going to show that bend in it, and then that's where it's not going to look good to the homeowner. So having a straight edge or line or laser or anything like that where you can find all those highs and lows before you start installing is very important. and then you can get those addressed and either shimmed out or redo the plywood or whatever you want on that. But talking about the substrate, now here we're just putting over OSB and we don't have anything, we're just putting a straight lumber. But we're assuming that you're gonna put some kind of water moisture barrier here first. Is that what the question? So you're gonna, yeah. So you'll have something here, Tyvek is fine, moisture applied, whatever kind you put on here. And then it has to be able to hold a screw. And then this is our screw. It's an 1.1/8" screw, so it's not very long. So we get asked this, well, can I go all the way through and try to hit the studs? No, we just want you to hit the plywood. It needs to be able to attach to the plywood. If you've got a substrate that's not solid like plywood, like Den's glass or rock wool or any of those kinds, then you're going to need to put furring strips. You've got to put some kind of wood or metal furring strips on this, and attach that to the building, and then attach us to the furring strips. Talked about like the basic hand tools that you would need. No hammers. Please don't use a hammer on our metal. You might want to get a rubber mallet every once in a while. You have to help it along, but be very gentle because it can bend. But everything you do, you want to protect this coating. This coating is very durable. It's very flexible. It holds up to UV, sunlight, all the different elements, but it's susceptible to like high heat. So if you put a grinder on this, for instance, if I were to run a grinder on there, this thing would be smoking hot when I got through cutting it, and it would actually melt some of the coating back, and that's where you're going to get a rust spot. So if we have a claim, we're like, well, my building's rusting and I need somebody, Corey, to come out and look at it. First thing he's going to look and see the edges, and if they're all rusted out, that's what he's going to ask. Well, what kind of cutting method did they use? Did they use a guillotine? What did they use? So the key word there is cold cutting method. That's kind of a new term. Maybe you've heard it, but in the metal industry, they'll know what you're talking about. I only want cold cutting methods. So I think John said he pulled out on a job the other day when he telling us that, and he heard grinders going.
Yeah.
So he stopped them. So that's what you're gonna have to do if you're on the job, and they'll want to revert back to their old ways and just grab their old tools, but tell them no, we need that to be a cold cut. So what is a cold cut? This cold cuts. So when I cut that, it didn't create heat. A shear like this one right here would be a cold cut. So when I go like this, so that cut it, but it's not hot. But if I put a grinder on there, that's going to be smoldering hot, and plus it's going to be really rough. So a shear works. I don't have one here to demonstrate. There's another tool called a nibbler. So a nibbler is just what it sounds like. It sounds like a sewing machine. It just goes through and nibbles away at the metal as it goes. So nibblers are good. And then of course the guillotine. Most metal siding companies have a guillotine of some sort. We have one. This is the one for the Harry wood, and the reason why it's only for the Harry wood is because what we do is we make this die right here, where this piece will fit exactly into that slot right there. So it's a nice, smooth, protected area for the cut. If you just use some random or generic guillotine, it won't have this die on it, and when you come down, the blade will be the same. When you come down on the blade, it's just going to bend up all these edges, and it won't look.
It'll squeeze together the profiles, and nothing will be able to stack on each other, or you'll have to pry it back open.
Yeah. Coming soon is the one that will be a universal one, but
yeah.
But anyway, for now we have this one, and not much can really go wrong with the blade. It's really not a blade; it's a punch. You'll see that's not sharp. Right there, it's just flat. So this really doesn't wear. What wears out are these grommets on here, and you can get replacements. There's a replacement kit for it. So, and then the way you do it is you put it in, make sure it's smooth. I would normally make a straight line so I know where my line is, and then you push this little guide, this little protector. It goes up into the slot, And what that does is that holds that slot open. And then Corey, if you'll be my...
Yep.
So he's going to come along. And the only place that you can really hurt yourself is if you put your hand here. Mm-hmm. So as long as you got a handle here, and however you want it, you're left-handed? I didn't know you were left-handed. Okay, sorry. So you could... I didn't know I had a southpaw here. So you could put this handle on this side if that would make it more comfortable for you. So he cut it, and then you show him how smooth that is.
And so it's just like a factory edge. So, and it's
essentially the same cutter that's at the factory, just in a in a field form. Does anybody like to cut one? Anybody want to? Nobody? You get chance to be famous. Can be on your. All right, so move that thing up.
Once you get it in, right?
Okay, that goes up. That goes in. And then the way you know it's in, it's nice and tight. Then that goes in there. Push that up. Yep. And then right now it's in lock. So go up and then just push that down. And now you're ready to go. Voila.
Is there a piece or an adapter that can go in for, say, if we had these little pieces right here that you could go back behind it and attach those, or you automatically have to go to another piece that's got the connectors together?
You always, to put two pieces together, you always use two factory ends.
Always got to use
Yeah, there's no piece to do it. Yeah, so you always got to be mindful of how we do it. And I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, you do. You don't. You always use it.
That can be more waste in itself just by having pencil behind the cuts and everything.
Yeah, it could be, other than the fact that we randomize, and so you're always taking those little pieces and
so you could take that and start a row with the piece you cut, and so actually your waste is minimal.
So it's kind of just like flooring where you cut one end and use that. Or
Yeah.
any of the quick-
Yeah, it's kind of a hardwood floor on the wall.
Yeah,
Is the idea.
good analogy. So you have on your website. We talked about it yesterday how you can get samples, but if you've got a guillotine in stock and you're in a pinch, I would just maybe write off a box and go out there. You can cut pieces.
Yeah.
And take to people, because a lot of times people we give free the 6-inch pieces that you can have, but sometimes an architect wants a 3-foot piece. Or they want a mock wall. They want to put a mock wall up. Maybe you're doing a school or church or something. They want to do a mock wall. So you could just go out there and take your guillotine and cut them however many pieces. Cut them all 6-foot pieces and give it to them. All right. So I said all that stuff about cold cutting and no saw and no grinder. And then I've got a saw sitting on my table. Is anybody wondering why that was there? It's a low, because we talked about it yesterday. So that's the low RP.
I ordered 5 of those.
You did? This Makita one? Really?
Nice.
5 of those, 5 oscillators.
You're the
Good
man.
We can't tell people use
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So this is also, it's just, so for those that weren't in the meeting yesterday, what it is it's a blade that has a cement or a carbide tip blade and as many teeth as possible. Like, I don't know how many teeth this one has. Quite a few. As many teeth as you can get, those teeth. And then this one is oscillating, so it regulates the speed, so it keeps it at what we call a low RPM. Because what's on that blade, the blade, when you buy it, it's going to have a number on there. It's going to max RPM, say 3,500 RPM. Let's just throw out a number. You want the saw to always be below 35 RPM. So that's why if you buy this oscillating type saw like he ordered, like this one, it automatically always stays low. And then another feature of these is it catches the metal shards as it goes along. That's kind of nice. And they're not that much more expensive. This is the Makita. I just bought the small one because I'm traveling, but you can get 7 1/4. You can get whatever you want. You can put it on a chop saw. You can put it on a miter saw, whatever you want to do. But I'll demonstrate it real quick. It's really noisy. It wasn't that bad. But if I'd had a regular saw, sparks would have been flying, and this would be smoking hot right now, and it's not. And this blade is pretty smooth. It's not as smooth as the guillotine, and it actually would be smoother if I would change this blade out. I just hadn't changed it in a while. So you do have to change this out. You'll probably need 2 or 3 per house. Maybe 2 per house.
Yeah.
But I've had this one. I've noticed this one's getting on its last leg. But what's nice about it is, so if I'm doing a job, I'm going to use this for all my straight cuts. I'm going to use the guillotine, have it on the table. That's just fast and easy, keep the guys going. But let's say we get to the top of the gable of the roof, and so now I've got to cut each one of those at an angle. Before I knew about this, I would have had to take this thing and cut. I would have had to cut across, and that's not fun. So I would have to cut across this way, and I had to do every one of those pieces. So this is a lot better. So you can see now I can do angles if I want to. Now it's nice. I can put that up on a roof. So that's all cold cutting methods, how you can do it. So that's the tools. Any questions about the tools? Pretty clear. All right, now let's talk about the moldings, because you're going to get asked to price out the moldings, and that's why I have everybody raise your right hand. Hold up your fingers. So there's 5. You're holding up 5 fingers, 4 fingers and a thumb, and you didn't do it. It's always one. Just these 2 over here. You're not even paying attention. Come on. No, but when you're pricing it out, there's those 5, and I do that silly little thing there to help you remember. There's always 5. So J trim is your workhorse. There's always a J trim, and the J trim goes at the top of the wall. It can go, it goes on the sides of windows. It can go on the bottom of the window. Sometimes it can go on the top of the window. And this is where installers vary. They all have different methods. Some like to always start it with a J trim at the bottom, and that's fine if that's what they do, and that's what the architect wants and the homeowner and the builder wants. We're fine with that too. So J trim is used quite a bit. So that's J trim. Then after that, it's pretty simple: inside and outside corners. So our inside corner looks like that. It's almost like a J trim with a quarter round. So this would be something you could use on an edge like this to give you a nice quarter round edge on an inside corner. I've also seen it used at the top of soffits. So, and then I've had a couple customers use it around their windows. They just like that quarter round look. So that's just another option for them, but we call it the inside corner. And then the other is the outside corner, which is on your outside. Then I'll demonstrate that here at the end, how that works. And then the other one would be drip flashing. And drip flashing is any place you want water to drip away from the building. So you may want it, like over here, we have it on a vertical. We have it at the bottom to allow the water to go out on a vertical installation. Here we have it over a window, because maybe this is a window that's exposed to the elements. We want that water to come down and out and away from the building. So this is a rain screen. So this system is called a rain screen. And so it's designed for water. The water will be coming in and out of the building. It's not going to be waterproof. So we assume that there could be condensation, moisture behind the wall. Not a lot of it, but there's going to be some. So any that gets behind it, we want it to go out. And that's your installer also, and how he puts his J trims in and his trim. It's very important that he puts them up in a way that doesn't create water dams behind the wall, so when the water's coming down, it doesn't get clogged up there. You want it to come on down like a gutter almost. So that's where drip flashing comes in. Any place where you want water to run away from the building. And then the only other thing that you might need if you're doing a horizontal install and you're not going to use a J trim at the bottom, you would use a starter strip. And so the starter strip is just a little clip. All it is a piece of metal. It goes on the wall like that. And then sorry cameraman, I'm all over the place. So that would go on the wall, and then this piece would clip into this bottom piece right here. So it holds, all it is an anchor for the bottom. And then you start screwing in as you go. So you start, so that's the 5 main ones. Now, there are some others. When you get into Polymac, you may need this piece. I'm just going to show it to you. It's called a U-trim. And these are the, there's also the part of a Polymac. That's their offset junction brackets. So those are some other ones. We'll talk about board and batten and Polymac in a minute, and I'll give you the subtle differences on those. But for now, those are the 5 main trim pieces. So if you're doing it, or whoever takes the orders or does the orders, you want to look over your order form, and you should be looking for those 5 pieces. If you don't have them, ask a question. Hey, what? You don't have any outside corners on this job? What's going on? You know, it might be. Maybe it's just a straight wall and there's no corners. So you just want to ask the question. Also, having said all of that, we sell coils. So Corey can get you coils that are the same color as the material you want. So you can get a 16 or 24 inch coil, 50 or 100 foot long, and the contractor can make their own. So it's not unlikely that we sell jobs where we'll have 15 boxes of hairy wood and we have 3 coils of material, of coil stock, and then they just make it on the job, or they have it fabricated. So that'd be the other thing you want to do, is locate a fabricator in the Texarkana area that can be on standby to make these things, because there may be a time where somebody wants a drip flashing and they want it longer right here. Well, we'll make that for you in Canada and send it to you, but let's say you need it last minute. Well, you could have it made, here locally with the coils. If you're making small little 3-foot pieces, you could probably use an aluminum brake, but I wouldn't want to ruin my aluminum brake doing 10-foot pieces of steel. So
Right. The coils come in one solid color, or are they going to be? Can you order them in a different?
they'll just be in whatever.
They'll match.
They'll
match whatever you have.
But it'll be one. It'll be like a 1, or it might be a 6. It might be a whatever. You don't know. It just there's in a 16-inch piece, there'd be 2 or 3 different shades in that piece.
Yeah.
So,
but a lot of times they'll make a cap with that coil stock, a cap on the top, maybe a cap on the bottom. I've seen them wrap beams.
Yep.
Vertical beams, horizontal beams. That way you just get the same look throughout. And those metal contractors, I mean, I've been amazed at how creative they can be with just some flat coil.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And Corey probably would back me up, when we bid a job, we usually just throw in the price of a guillotine and a price of a coil.
Yep.
And that way they've got it, so that way.
They'll always ask for it.
Yeah.
Can we just get some flat material?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. So then you got the material, you got your tools, you got your cold cutting, you're ready and you put up all your trim. Now you're ready to put up material. So I talked briefly about the screws. So this screw is very, very important. It's a 1 1/8" screw. We make a set of screws for each profile. So like Harrywood and Norwood all use this screw. And if you'll notice, it's got a little shaft at the top. You can pass that around if you want. It's got a little shaft at the top, and that allows for the metal, when you put it into the metal,
Smooth.
it allows
Smooth.
that
Smooth.
to
Where the
move
threads
up and down
stop.
on the screw. So you don't put this thing in tight. I see a lot of impact drills out on the job site, which is fine
See
because
where
they
the
like the
threads
impacts because they're lighter. But just when they go down, they don't want to drill that thing. They want to impact that all the way in. They want this needs to be snug, not tight. And the screw is also, it's going to go in the middle of the channel. You see how it's right there in the middle, kind of hanging? It's not to the left and it's not to the right. It's in the middle, and it's as straight as possible. That way, this metal can move back and forth. Steel of this type is going to move about 1/8 of an inch every 32 feet. So this is important. This is an important thing to remember, because one of the words that we don't want is oil canning, or that warping that happens with metal. And warping is all due to how they install it. because if you put this on too tight, or you put it too tight into your J trims like that, normally you would want to come off about 1/8 of an inch off your J trim. But if you put that in real tight on both sides, all this is bound in here. So now when it gets hot, let's say you do it on a cold day and it gets hot, all this metal goes out 1/8 inch and it just crinkles and warps. And so then you get a phone call, and then he gets a phone call, and then I get a phone call, and then we go, put it on too tight. So it's just, I mean, every trade's got, every product on the market has got some little thing, and you just need to be aware and make your customer aware. And if you're out in the field, just watch the guys, and they'll slip back into their old habits and try to go too tight. But it's just a constant reminding, and then after 2 or 3 jobs, they'll have it down where they won't have a problem with it. But so that's the screw. So we want you to use this screw because it's part of the whole system. And we have not only do we have a wood screw, but we also have a metal version, which I don't have one here to demonstrate, but we have a metal self-tapper that you can buy. So if you're using metal hat channel or Z-girts or any of those things like that, then you'll want to get a metal screw. So we're going to start putting up metal, and I've already done the work. So what we would do is we'd start with the starter down here, and then we would just build up as we go along. And that's, again, we're going to do it in steps. We're going to do like a 1, a 3, a different size as we go up the wall. So then eventually we're going to get to a point we're going to have, I mean, you could do the whole job with just straight with no seams. That's going to be one look. But if you wanted to give it more of a wood look or a more random look, put some seams in it. And so the way you do a seam is you butt two of the factory edges together, and when you put it together, you're going to notice there's a little bit of a gap, and maybe afterwards we can all come up and look, but there's a little bit of a gap right here, and you want that gap. And that's, again, to allow for expansion and contraction. And then I've got this here just to demonstrate. We don't sell this, but you could buy this. You probably sell this seam seal tape. You guys sell that? The rolls of seam seal that goes on the bottom of a seam. So we found this works really good. Any type of like a foam or material that'll allow moisture to dry out. Just what that does is that holds that inside part there. If you did it right and your wall is right and you didn't bend the metal and everything's going good, you shouldn't need this. But if you do, I just have this here. It's kind of a trick of the trade that you could use that. On seams only. Yeah, you don't need it everywhere else. But anyway, so you put the seam in, and then you would give it a little bit of about 1/8 of an inch gap, and then you would take your screw and then you're going to go as close to that middle as possible, right in the middle. So you notice I didn't go all the way down, I just got it up, and it clips in. So this bottom piece here clips in to the top, so it just works off of gravity. So each piece goes in just like stacks on top of the other. And the good part about this is if you do get some kind of an imperfection, you notice that maybe somebody hit, let's say you were working the day before and you come back the next day and somebody dented this, you can take these down and replace this real easily. So it's some products out there snap in. Our old product snapped in really, really aggressively, and it was hard to dig. You had to dig it out, and so you ruin it. So if you had that situation, you would have to dig all these out and start over. So this one is so much easier because it just stacks on top of each other.
Yes.
So that's a good part. And then you just keep going, and then you would take the next piece, and hopefully you would randomize it, and you would cut it on your guillotine. So you're going to put these screws about every 16 to 24 inches as you go across. Actually, the screws are already set up for you. And they just put it in there and just, that's about right. So you don't go much more than that. You can put another one in. Yeah, you have to find a spot.
So I'm not going to pull, I'm just going to lay it flat, right?
Yeah, lay it flat and just put it in the middle toward the top. as straight as possible.
In the middle towards the top?
Yeah.
Is that too tight?
No, that's good.
Next.
I mean, it gives you some wiggle room. Again, it's 1/8 of an inch, so, but you just don't want to be right up next to each one of those edges. All right.
Your next piece?
Next piece. Okay. So now you say, well, what do you do now? You got this last piece, so it's not perfect, right? So the thing is, I need this piece to go right here, right? I need to go inside the J trim, and I need it to fit inside there, and I need it to be as snug as possible inside of here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from this line right here where it hits, and I'm going to go about halfway into my J trim. I don't want to go all the way to the top, but I don't want it to be right on the edge. I want it maybe about halfway. And so I'm going to measure that. So this is going to be just a real quick demonstration of how it's done. And there's a video on this in our library of videos. It's called End of Wall. So you can watch some End of the Wall. And you know, just to promote our videos, and you guys have done some excellent videos here too at Red River and Davis Lumber. Yeah,
Yep.
But ours are done in little blur, like real small. So they'll do around the window, they'll do into the wall, they'll do vertical, they'll do outside corner. So they do each one of those, and it only takes like a 3-4 minute
Yep.
video. This is where the shear is really handy. So if I had a long 12 foot piece, I wouldn't want to do it with this. Cut like that, it would take forever. The saw can get off, it's noisy. So I just would take my shear. So this piece right here will go in, and it acts as a clip. So I took the top of this piece, that's this piece, and I cut it off and I flipped it over, and I'm using it for the clip on the bottom.
What it does is it acts as a shim.
Yeah.
Because if you don't put it in there, in some of your situations where say you've got a larger top of wall piece, it'll rattle.
Yeah, like if I just
Like
put it in.
wind will get in there, and you'll hear that all the time. So if you don't have something behind it at the top or the bottom as to shim it out, then you'll hear a rattle.
Yeah. So this kind of a demonstration would be like that. It would be up there, but it's nothing hold it.
Yeah.
See?
It's really important too, if you use J trim on the bottom and you don't shim behind that first piece, then that first piece is going to fall back against the building, and that J trim is going to create a tray, and you're going to have potentially water holding in that J trim. So
that's how it is. I know this is torrified, but and you can put a little bead of caulk in there. I wouldn't put a big glob of caulk, but you could put maybe like a little dab of acrylic, siliconized acrylic or something. I'd probably get one similar to the same color as this. But you're not going to see it, but that would hold it in there. Yeah. No, I wasn't going to leave it like that. But all that is the shim. So that's how you do a top of the wall or bottom of the window or any place where it comes into contact, where it terminates. So that's basically horizontal in a real quick salesman version, so you can get it quick, so you'll know what to look for as you're talking. So after that, you could do vertical install. So that's much easier. You just need a J trim at the top, you just need a drip at the bottom, and then you just make sure these are straight as possible. Now the only thing I did different on this one is I put the screws at the top of the channel on a vertical. And the reason I did that is because gravity is going to hold it down, and then as expansion and contraction, you want it to move up and down. So you want to do it that way. That holds it down, and then expansion and contraction will move it up. And then, so like, you know, let's say you had a job where they were going horizontal here, and then they were going to go vertical the rest of the way, but you still need a corner. So what we have is the 2-piece outside corner, and the way that works is you have a clip that goes into the metal here. So this time you would actually drill it in or screw it into the metal. This acts as a clip, so it ends up looking like that. That makes a nice corner. So this is one version. Most customers like this 2-piece outside corner because they can do this rough install and then do these last. Some like a 1-piece outside corner, which is basically 2 J trims back to back, and you'll see that in that catalog. So that catalog has a lot of different options in there of different types of corners, inside corners that you can use, but most people like this one, especially for the Harry, which is a lot easier to install. And this is what you stock. So it's called the 2-piece outside corner.
But if you were doing that J trim, back-to-back J trim on there, you'd have to have that on there first.
Right, you'd have to have that first, and then you'd have to get every one of those pieces in.
Yep.
So you couldn't have stuff like this where I cut this rough.
Right.
Every one of those would have to be perfect. So, I mean, that's
Sometimes it comes down to a installer preference. They might say that they're used to one type of corner or another, but
I mean, the key thing is you've randomized the wood patterns, you've cold cutted it, you put the screws in snug, not tight, and you put it into the different molding pieces, just barely, in it, but not real tight. You don't have it all bound up. Where this whole wall can move and breathe back and forth, and over time. Okay, just real quick, I think Corey and I want to show you. So you all know what board and batten is, a little farmhouse look. So now you can get it in a metal, and so you can get these pieces, or this is the reverse board and batten, and it's called reverse because this one's got like a 2-inch profile here, and on this one they got the 10-inch here and the 2-inch there, so it's the reverse of this one. So you can get both looks if you want. And then these also come in a box, and they're 10-foot long and 13-foot long. And all the components are the same, except you can get a wider trim. You can get a 3-inch trim piece for these. So that's an option. You can either get a 1-inch trim piece or a 3-inch trim piece. And if you want that costs more money, and it's a little bit slower to install, but it gives more of a old-timey farm look where they actually use like 1x3s around the windows. You will also need a transition piece if you're going to go over 2 stories, or like a gable end. You're going to have a vertical or horizontal transition piece. So that's essentially a J trim with like a drip all built into it. So everything I said before about having 5 pieces, with board and batten you need 6, at least 6. We talked about it yesterday. It's like an ACM panel, but it's in a box. So it gives you that look where you got it?
Yep. So
you stack it on top, and it leaves this gap here. So you can grid this out on a wall. So think about I always say go drive by your Chevy dealer after we've had this talk and go look at the front where it's all blue and it's all gridded out and it's got those little spaces in between each one. This is a way of making that at about half the cost, because those are ACM panels and they have to be made off-site and then brought out to the job and put up like a puzzle. These are called Polymac.
these are steel, and usually those are aluminum.
Yeah, and that's the one. So the only thing so I mentioned the 5 pieces. These have the same 5 pieces, but it may require a U-trim, and the U-trim is the piece that gaps it together on a vertical. So you will need these. You need 1 per panel, or 1 per how many links you have. But we now have it where you can stagger the bond if you wanted to. So I could instead of running it this way and having a straight bond, so a straight bond would be like that, and that line would go all the way up the wall. But now I have the ability to do this and stagger the bond. I don't know if this is going to work.
You can break it up.
I'm going to see if it'll work. So I could put it this way and have it more like I could have halfway. I could have 2 foot, and then I could put another little thing there, and then do another one. So it now allows you to do that, and you can also go vertical for the first time. So when it first came out, you couldn't do vertical, but now we could go vertical. He could put that, and we could put that on top. So this is where we heard people listen. People talked and said, "Hey, we would like to be able to do vertical. We like to do staggered bond." So our R&D department went back to the drawing board and came up with an idea, and that came up with this offset bracket. And so now we can do a little more design features on a job. So it gives more versatility to it. It can be cut, manipulated. It can be cut shorter if you want. They come in 4-foot and 6-foot lengths and 20-inch and 20 and 12-foot heights.
And we've just developed a new field bender.
But yeah, what he's talking about is a bender. See how this has a factory bend on it, and that bend allows these clips to go in? Well, if you cut that off, well, then you lose your bend. So now we have a tool, kind of like our guillotine, that you can get, and it'll bend this over
In the field.
in the field.
So you don't have to go to try to find a fabricator. They can do it right there.
Or take your own. What guys were doing is they were just taking their own handbrakes and modifying them out in the field. But now you've just got one that's just dedicated just to the Polymac that you could just use. There'll be something else you could rent out or sell or whatever you want to do. But that was a really, really fast version of everything that we normally talk about. Well, thank you.